Alright, today we're going to look at the Loop Cut and Slide tool. Now, this tool is incredibly useful for making additional subdivisions on geometry while giving us some additional control over where those divisions take place. If you want to follow along exactly, I've placed a plane in our scene along with the default cube. Let's start with the cube and make sure we have it selected, and then tab into Edit mode. If we look to the left in our Tools panel, remember that's T if you don't have that panel up, we can see the Loop Cut and Slide tool. But we like hotkeys, and this hotkey is Control R. Now, this tool is a two-step process. If we hover over the edge we want to cut, you'll see a magenta line appear that lets us preview where our cut will be. If we left-click to accept the cut, you'll find that moving the mouse along the edge lets us slide the cut back and forth to get perfect placement. Now, once we've decided on that perfect placement, left-clicking again would confirm that placement and make the cut. But perhaps our perfect placement is exactly halfway in between. Let's right-click and see what happens. When we right-click, the cut is placed at exactly 50% of the distance between edges. That's pretty handy. Now, let's Control-Z and undo that, and let's try again. We'll use Control-R to start our operation. But this time, instead of left-clicking to accept a single cut, let's scroll our mouse wheel a bit. Now we get multiple cuts. If you then accept that by left-clicking, you'll notice that when we have multiple cuts, they are evenly spaced, and while we can slide them, the cuts themselves remain a set distance from each other. Okay, once again, let's Control-Z to undo back to our original cube. This time, we'll make a single cut across one axis, and then again, we'll hit Control-R to make a single cut across the other axis. You've probably noticed that we could have subdivided the cube, but this is good practice. Now, let's grab this vertex on top and move it along the y-axis to get this shape. I want to demonstrate how we can manipulate our cut further. Once again, we'll hit Control-R for our operation and choose a cut along the x-axis. Now, when we slide back and forth, you can see the cut interpolate between the straight edge and the angled edge. Now, depending on what you're doing, that might be fine just like that, and you can place the cut as you like by left-clicking. However, you might want your cut to follow one of these edges without it changing as you reposition it. Well, we have tools for that too. If you look down in the left lower corner, we can see the readout for our cut as we move the edge back and forth. Right next to that, we can see a bit that says even with the E in parentheses. There's a hotkey hint if ever I saw one. Let's hit E, and we now see a yellow line with a red dot along the adjacent edge. The red dot determines which loop our cut will mimic. If we look at the corner again, we can now see there's a flip command, hotkey F. If we hit F, we can see the dot flip to the other end of the yellow line. Now we have the ability to flip back and forth and decide whether our cut will follow the straight or the angled edge, regardless of where along the face we place it. That can become very handy for complex shapes. Alright, let's finish that operation by left-clicking and tab back to Object mode. Now let's deselect by hitting A and then select our plane. Now let's tab into Edit mode, hit Control-R, and scroll our mouse wheel just a bit to get two cuts. Let's accept that. And now let's raise that face on the z-axis. Now let's repeat our loop cut operation. This time we'll scroll to get 3 cuts. Now, when we look into the lower left corner, we also see a smooth operation designated with the Alt key. So before we do anything else, let's hold down Alt and scroll our mouse wheel until we've gone all the way up to 4. When we look in our viewport, nothing's happened. That's okay. When we left click to accept, we can see the cuts round out, doing their best to interpolate between the edges next to the operation. We can scroll that wheel as all the way up to 4 or anywhere in between, and with practice, you'll get the hang of just how rounded out that will become. Now we can choose where we want the cut to be, and left or right click to accept it. Remember, right will place all those cuts at a perfect 50%. This is very useful for interpolating the curve on a wall, for example. Alright, great. Let's review. There were a lot of hotkeys going on in this video. First, we learned our major hotkey, which is Control-R, to access our loop cut and slide tool. We also learned that scrolling the mouse lets us determine additional equidistant cuts. We learned that when we're in our operation, we can use E and F to make our cuts follow a linear or nonlinear edge as we need. We also learned that we can use our scroll wheel to perform a simple smoothing operation on our cut, or multiple cuts, to help with creating curves. Awesome! Now, once again, the loop cut and slide operation is on that list of very often used tools. So be sure you're really comfortable with it before moving on. Once you are, I'll see you in the next video.